As Kath came round the corner, Pupils seemed to sense her frustration. It looked as though something was bothering her. Pupils seemed concerned about her mood. In fact, Jason muttered, "Oh no," under his breath. Kath's frustration came across in the tone of her voice, her posture and the words she used. She did not seem to notice that Pupils were behaving quite reasonably, considering that they had been waiting for her for some time. When she shouted at them, they reacted as if they felt they were being treated unfairly. Because Kath was so frustrated at being late, she forgot to greet Pupils and instead launched straight into a rehearsal of the rules for lining up outside the classroom. She asked Pupils to line up properly. Kath seemed dissatisfied at the speed with which Pupils responded to her instructions and singled out Kirsty for a detention. When Kirsty, who seemed to feel that she had been treated unfairly, answered back and Anita tried to defend her, Kath became even more annoyed, and Anita received a detention too. This exchange seemed to increase Kath's frustration with the whole class, and eventually everybody received a detention for failing to line up quickly enough.
Right, that's detention for all of you.
Oh, miss, what have we done?
We are not going into the classroom until...
Once Pupils were in line, Kath singled out a number of pupils to make points about poor behaviour. When she approached Peter, because he still had his hood up, she made intrusive eye contact, which could have been perceived as challenging. While she was doing this, the other pupils avoided looking at her. They appeared anxious not to be drawn into this conflict. By the time Kath was ready for the class to move into the classroom, she already seemed weary of them. She opened the door in an aggressive way, and the pupils filed in reluctantly.
It's important that staff maintain a professional approach and manage to control both their feelings and their behaviour when teaching. They should not project their personal feelings onto their classes or individual pupils. Kath was frustrated because I made her late for her lesson, and she allowed those feelings to influence the way she behaved toward the class. I think she was quite hard on our pupils. They seemed to me to be waiting in a fairly acceptable way for a class of 14-year-olds whose teacher is late. Kath took her own frustrations out on them. This is not helpful for developing the positive relationships that are so necessary for successful learning. I think sometimes pupils get the impression that Kath doesn't like them and that she treats them unfairly. This can make them reluctant participants in her lessons and creates a barrier to learning. Maybe I need to be more explicit about the ways in which we build relationships with each other in this school. Kath was not really applying our behaviour management plan here in the spirit in which it was agreed. It is not intended as a way of berating pupils. If Kath persists with her own style of behaviour management, it will make life difficult for us all. Because, as a school, we're working hard to establish consistent approaches to managing common problems. There seems to be a lack of clarity about our expectations of pupils waiting to go into class. We have an agreed routine that both staff and pupils should be familiar with. Kath asked pupils to line up properly, rather than reminding them about the agreed school routine.
You will line up properly. You're lounging about all over the place here, getting in everyone's way. Line up properly behind Tracy. Jump to it!
This type of language does not help pupils learn how to behave.
In my experience, Kath can get very irritated when she's diverted from her teaching plan. In this case, the phone call from the head teacher was the last straw after an already bad start to her morning. When Kath is managing pupils' behaviour, she can resort to shouting fairly quickly, and she is convinced that this is a good strategy because, in the short term, it seems to work for her. However, she doesn't really seem to appreciate the impact this has on teaching and learning, and relationships in general. Some of the staff find Kath's behaviour management style very difficult, as they are trying to implement strategies that are focused on the positive use of language and promoting a calm and purposeful environment. Kath needs to think about some ways of achieving longer-term success in improving pupils' behaviour. The pupils were lining up in a fairly ordinary way, with the usual Year 8 banter. But the whole atmosphere changed when Kath arrived and began to focus immediately on what she saw as unacceptable behaviour. Pupils quickly became disengaged and resentful, feeling they were being unfairly treated. And as Kath became more frustrated and annoyed, she increased the sanctions she gave. She moved quickly to the serious consequence of detention, first for Kirsty, then Anita, and then the whole class, without attempting to use low-key interventions or providing a positive focus.
Right, I haven't got time for this. Kirsty, detention.
I didn't do anything. She's only being polite and like some people.
And Anita, detention. Back here at 3:30.
But miss...
Don't but miss me. You know the rules.
But I thought you was late. I don't know what you're taking out on us for.
If the whole class isn't lined up properly before I count to 3. 1, 2... Right, that's detention for all of you.
Oh, miss, what have we done?
It is not necessary to jump immediately to severe consequences. The senior leadership team at Joiner School is encouraging staff to develop their behaviour management skills so that they can take responsibility for managing pupils' behaviour during lessons, using the agreed classroom reward and consequence framework. The school wants to avoid the overuse of detentions and pupils being sent out of class, reserving these for serious behaviour issues. I was concerned that the situation might become confrontational at times. Things could have gone either way when Kath treated minor misdemeanours, such as Peter's hood.
Peter, if you don't take that hood down now, don't bother coming into my classroom.
Kirsty's gesture, and Anita's defensive answering back as major incidents, worthy of quite strong punishment.
She's only being polite and like some people.
And Anita, detention. Back here at 3:30.
But miss...
Don't but miss me. You know the rules.
But I thought you was late.
The pupils here sullenly complied with her, but there are pupils who could have responded in a much more aggressive way. Many of the pupils' negative responses came as a direct result of Kath's attitudes and approaches to them. This lesson did not get off to a good start.